Hello and welcome back to my channel, where today we are going to meet E.H. Harriman, the man who became the king of transportation. Edward Henry Harriman was born on June 27, 1848, in Hempstead, New York, the son of an Episcopal clergyman. Growing up, he attended St. John's College in Maryland. But he left school at the age of 14 after his father died to help support his family. He took a job as a messenger boy on Wall Street, the very heart of American finance. And though the work was hard, it was here that Harriman received his real education. He soaked up the ways of the financial district like a sponge, learning the language of money and the nuances of the stock market. It wasn't long before he knew the street as well as the oldest brokers. By the age of 18, Harriman was making enough to send his mother and sister to Europe to study, an indication of his early success. But soon he would outgrow his modest beginnings and aim for bigger things. At the age of 22, he became a member of the New York Stock Exchange and opened his own firm. With his sharp mind and ambitious drive, he quickly made a name for himself among the brokers, even getting married to a millionaire's daughter, Mary Antoinette Auguste Toctor. They built a grand home together in Manhattan with views of Central Park. But while Harriman was achieving social status in New York, he felt something was missing. He realized that the real money in the financial world wasn't just in trading stocks, but in owning the assets that drove the economy. And what better asset than the very veins of the country's commerce, the railroads? So, in the 1880s, he began to turn his attention away from Wall Street and toward the rails. He started small, buying up tiny, struggling lines that ran through the West, including the Illinois Central Railroad and the Chicago, Rock Island, and Pacific Railway. He applied the same business acumen that made him successful on Wall Street to these railroads, restructuring their finances and improving their operations. He made these small railroads profitable, catching the eye of Wall Street investors. But he was only getting started. The real prize was the Union Pacific Railroad, which ran from Omaha, Nebraska, west to the Pacific Ocean. Founded in 1862 during the Civil War, it was originally intended to connect the Union Pacific Railway with the western territories of the U.S. acquired in the Mexican War. The idea was that by extending a railroad across the country, the United States could be more easily unified during wartime. This made the Union Pacific one of the largest companies created by federal legislation. Its total funded capital, nearly $53 million, was more than that of any other corporation in the country at the time. The government granted the Union Pacific land along the route of the railroad and sold bonds to raise capital, and the railroad was constructed largely with immigrant labor. However, because of fraud committed by its major stockholders, the value of the company's bonds decreased and they were unable to sell them at par. Soon, they defaulted on interest payments, struggled to stay afloat. When Harriman heard about the Union Pacific's financial troubles, he jumped at the opportunity. He assembled a group of bankers and wealthy businessmen, put together a plan to save the railroad. In 1897, Harriman's group bought the Union Pacific for $75 million. Harriman then reorganized the railroad and consolidated several smaller Western railroads under the Union Pacific banner, transforming it into one of the largest transportation systems in the country. He officially took over as chairman of the executive committee of the Union Pacific. And now, he was no longer just a prominent businessman. He was a railroad magnate. One of Harriman's first moves as chairman of the Union Pacific was to embark on an aggressive campaign of modernization. He invested heavily in improving the tracks, bridges, tunnels, and rolling stock, ensuring that every aspect of the railroad was top-notch. This wasn't just about aesthetics or convenience. It was about efficiency and profitability. He understood that a well-maintained, efficient railroad could carry more goods and passengers while reducing costs and increasing revenue. It was a simple formula for success. Harriman didn't limit himself to the Union Pacific. His ambitions extended far beyond a single railroad. And it was this ambition that led him into his greatest challenge and triumph: the acquisition of the Northern Pacific Railway Company. This railway company ran from the Great Lakes to the Pacific Northwest. But it was more than just a transportation link. It was a key artery for trade between the growing industrial centers of the East and the agricultural richness of the West. And Harriman wanted it. But he wasn't alone. James J. Hill, a titan of the railroad industry and owner of the Great Northern Railway, also had his eyes on the Northern Pacific. Then there was J.P. Morgan, the legendary banker, who saw the strategic value of the railway and threw his hat into the ring. Suddenly, Harriman found himself in a three-way battle for control of the Northern Pacific. With Harriman focused on acquiring the Northern Pacific, a rival railroad tycoon named Thomas F. Ryan swooped in and bought a controlling interest in the Southern Pacific Railroad. This move threatened Harriman's growing empire. If Ryan were to link up with Morgan and Hill, Harriman could be cut off from the lucrative trade routes on the West Coast. So he was forced to take action. In a series of brilliant moves, Harriman managed to outmaneuver his opponents and secure the Northern Pacific for himself. He financed the purchase by selling stocks in the Union Pacific, a move that caught Morgan off guard and drained the financial resources of his competitor. Meanwhile, Harriman's shrewd negotiations with the Northern Pacific secured him a dominant position in the region. This victory was a testament to Harriman's strategic brilliance. It wasn't just about having the deepest pockets. It was about knowing when to strike, how to strike, and exploiting every advantage. Despite his win, Harriman's relationship with Hill soured, leading to a public feud between the two railroad tycoons. Each labeled the other unethical, reflecting the cutthroat nature of the railroad industry. But Harriman was unfazed by the criticism. He was too busy laying the foundations for what would become the Harriman system. Now that he controlled the Northern Pacific, Harriman was on the verge of creating a railroad empire spanning the western half of the United States. His focus shifted to linking these disparate lines into a cohesive system, improving infrastructure, streamlining operations, and harmonizing schedules. The result was nothing short of spectacular. By the early 1900s, the Harriman system, comprising the Union Pacific, Southern Pacific, Northern Pacific, and several other lines, was the largest railroad network in the United States. It covered approximately 25,000 miles, stretching from the Gulf of Mexico to the Canadian border and from the Atlantic coast to the Pacific. No other railroad magnate or system could match this reach. Harriman was the undisputed king of the rails. During his tenure, the Harriman system didn't just expand in size, it also expanded in efficiency. Harriman introduced innovative scheduling practices that allowed trains to travel faster and reduce wait times. He also improved safety standards, upgraded passenger services, and diversified freight offerings. His system was not only the largest, but also one of the most efficient in the world. But Harriman's vision went beyond mere expansion and efficiency. He wanted his empire to be a model of corporate organization and control. He meticulously planned routes, coordinated schedules, and standardized equipment across his entire network. This level of integration and control was unprecedented in the railroad industry. However, Harriman's legacy isn't just about numbers and statistics. It's also about the impact he had on the American landscape. Through his railroad system, he helped open up the American West, connecting distant markets and facilitating trade. He also played a crucial role in the growth of cities, linking them to national and international trade routes and spurring urbanization. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Harriman's legacy is the way he combined financial astuteness with hands-on management. Unlike many of his contemporaries who were purely speculative financiers, Harriman was deeply involved in the operations of his railroads. He was known to personally inspect bridges, tracks, and even train cars, paying attention to every detail. This blend of big-picture thinking and attention to detail made the Harriman system a powerhouse. By the time of his death in 1909, E.H. Harriman had created a transportation empire that was the envy of the world. He had taken a handful of small, struggling railroads and turned them into a single, massive, highly profitable system. He had reshaped the American West and set new standards for corporate efficiency and control. Harriman passed away at his home in Manhattan on September 12, 1909, leaving behind an estate valued at nearly $200 million, equivalent to over $6 billion in 2021. Though he was gone, his legacy lived on in the Harriman system and in the annals of American business history. So tell me, what do you think made E.H. Harriman so successful? His keen financial instincts, his operational expertise, or his sheer ambition? Share your thoughts below. Also, be sure to subscribe for more such insightful stories. Thank you all for watching.